All right, Ray, we had Stellantis that just reported their earnings for 2024, and they had a 70% decline in net profits. And I think
Yeah.
that we could have saw this coming. So we have Rams that are stacked up everywhere. We have incentives that are happening. We have Jeep. We have Jeep dealerships that are doing a buy one get one free. If you buy a Grand Wagoneer, you can get a free Jeep Compass. We have big time percentages coming off a lot of these Ram trucks at a lot of these dealerships. We have the CEO who is out now. He says he resigned, but I think he was leaning on the door and then they gave him a kick. So lots of bad things that have happened in the last year for Stellantis and last 2 or 3 years. Do you think that they can turn it around? Do you think that the new regime that comes in, are they going to have a much different direction? Am I going to be able to get an actual Jeep Wrangler in the future that is durable, simple, and
Not
affordable
overpriced and not overpriced
and
and
not
not
overpriced?
overpriced. I think that they have they have looked at the issues that they have had, and the issues that they have had. They had issues with their labor force. They've had issues with their suppliers, and they've had issues with their dealers. Maybe one more issue: they've had issues with their customers. Well, they have, because sales have dropped dramatically. When you look at that set of issues, you have pissed off every part of the cycle that you deal with. Your suppliers don't want to supply you with the parts anymore because you're you've been a nasty company to deal with in the way that you try to relate or bully the suppliers. Your dealers feel like you're just ramming stuff, and I don't mean this as a pun, but you're just like ramming stuff down their throats, and you're not helping them in any way to move the inventory that has been built up. Um, the customers are like, well, I used to be able to get the Jeep Wrangler for in the mid 30s, and now you want me to pay close to $50,000 or more for it. You don't survive very long, and your workers, my God, labor at in North America, unionized labor, they get a percentage of profit sharing. And I believe in the article it was like the average um, auto worker is going to get a bonus check of like $3,500. If I'm not mistaken, at GM, the bonus check was about $14,000. What do you got going for you at that point when you're Stellantis? You've pissed off everybody. I mean, everybody.
Yeah, and we can pull up. Let's see. There's a picture of it right there. There's one of the big problems, and I think
Yes.
identity is one of the things that this new regime is going to have to overcome, and they're going to have to overcome this very quickly because not only do you have these big SUVs that they're charging $120,000 for, which is not a Jeep customer. You have Grand Jeep Cherokees that are 60, 70, $80,000, and those are your mid-tier level SUVs. And when you look at who's the consumer for this, well, they could buy that, or they could buy something that's very similar in trim, very similar in size at Lexus. I can tell you, Jeep's not pulling that Lexus customer over to Jeep. They're going to go buy that luxury SUV, which is a Lexus. Then you have new product lines that they're trying to come out with, which is in the form of the American Muscle EV.
Yes.
That sentence doesn't work, and I feel like it's almost comical because Stellantis knows that the the American buyer of one of these muscle cars, they still want to hear that sound. They still want that American muscle how it used to be. So what did they do? Well, they built in this digital sound to make it sound like you can hear the roaring of the motor in some of these EV chargers, and that's not going to cut it for a lot of these consumers. So I think identity is something that for the board, for new leadership, they're going to have to take a big deep dive and decide who do they want to be. Do they want to continue to lean into this identity that has not worked over the last couple of years, or do they want to try to go back to what they have seen that has worked?
You look at Stellantis's sales, and they have been going backwards for years and years consistently. And then you look at Hyundai and Kia, whose sales are, I don't know, they're kind of like a rocket ship. They're just taking off month after month after month. You look at Mazda, sales taking off month after month after month. And at least I say to myself, well, what is it that Mazda understands? What is it that Hyundai Kia understands that Stellantis doesn't understand? And even though Hyundai Kia have raised their prices dramatically, and they are still a much better value dollar-wise than a lot of the comparable Stellantis products. Mazda, another, they're a much better value dollar-wise compared to comparable Stellantis products. So you can only push your vehicles so far up market before what you have done is just abandoned the customers that you built the brand on. And I think that is what has happened at Stellantis. It is as if they kicked their former customers to the curb and said, hey, thanks for everything you did to keep us in business all these years, but we don't need you anymore. We're looking for them well-heeled folks. Those people that want to spend $120,000 for a Jeep Wagoneer. And the problem is there's like 4 people across the United States of America that are thinking to themselves, yeah, I want to spend $120,000 for a Jeep Grand Wagoneer. Okay, they're not appealing to a big market. And they abandoned their customer base that they had. And that's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not how you grow your business, is it?
I've got a question for you. So you've worked for quite a few different brands at franchise dealerships. Yes. Do you remember any situation where there was a change or a direction shift or even a product line that came out where with the brand that you're working for, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense at all, and then it turns out that the consumer didn't want it at all. What does that feel like? What was the situation, and then what did it feel like through that scenario?
Okay, so I was working with Acura at the time, and I had been with Acura for, I think I spent 13, 14 years with Acura. And I remember we were at the dealership, and the factory rep came in, and they played a video from the head of Acura telling us how they were planning on growing sales. We want to get to 200,000 sales a year, and the way to do that is by producing good quality, near luxury, mass market vehicles, not niche vehicles. And to help us get there, in his next breath, he said, we developed the ZDX.
All right. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It would really help us out. Me and Ray need all the help that we can get. So please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.
Okay. And the ZDX at that time, not the new electric one, but the ZDX at that time was It was supposed to be a direct competitor to the BMW X6. And for those of you who have seen a BMW X6, it is an interesting, or it was an interesting looking vehicle. It was an unusual shape, unusual design. And I thought to myself, man, that's interesting. Because every time I see an X6, I go, my God, what an interesting vehicle. And then I realize I see like 3 or 4 of them a year. Okay, it's not like they're a popular vehicle. And the ZDX, which was designed for wealthy people for their great weekend getaways, appealed to no one. It was described as one reviewer as when trying to get into the back seat, it is as if you have to perform human origami. Okay, I'm a little guy, 5'6". I couldn't sit in the back seat without my head hitting the roof. Okay, at 5'6". Well, what's a normal
Here's the
person?
back seat right here. Check this
Yeah,
out. Yeah,
yeah,
that is crazy small.
yeah. What's a normal person supposed to do? So it was a product that, I mean, I drove the car. I drove one for a demo for a while. I mean, it was a fun vehicle to drive, but it made no sense at all. None. It was virtually, as Mark Miller says, virtually a two-seater. Oh, it had a back seat, just nobody could sit in it. Okay. You could fold the back seats down so that you could put all your gear in there for your really fancy weekend getaway. But it was like, it didn't make any sense. And when we first got the vehicles, it was like, who's going to buy this? And ultimately, the answer was nobody. So yeah, I've been with brands that have come out with vehicles that made no sense at all. I remember when I was way back when I was with, I think it was still called Datsun back then, and we had the F10, and my service manager described the F10 as the answer to the question that nobody ever asked. Okay, it was like, what were they thinking when it didn't make it was another vehicle, didn't make any sense at all. There wasn't a need for it. It didn't fit into our model mix at all. And so when you see things like that, you wonder how did the person who greenlighted this idea get their job? How could somebody come to them and say, here's a way for us to spend, I don't know, $1 billion or so developing this thing. There's 5 people in America that want it. Okay? I'm telling you, it's gonna be big, 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 I'm telling you. And then they give them another job within the company. It's not like they fire these people. They fail and then they give them another job. It's crazy.
So going through that, when it's a bad decision, when it's not not a good car, or something that just people just won't want. What do you say to your sales staff? Like, well, I know no one can get in the back seat, and I know your customer is going to say, well, they can't get in the back seat. So how do you sell that car?
You beg. How do you sell it? I mean, you look for somebody that has more money than brains. Okay, somebody who looks at it and they go, man, I really love the look at it. It must be a great utilitarian vehicle as well. Well, not really, but don't worry about that. You like the look? Go for it. Drive it. You're just stuck with some of this stuff, and you do your best to, if most people are payment buyers. So if it's a payment buyer, well, here's a vehicle that'll fit into the payment you want to be at. I know it might not be the vehicle you want, but it's a vehicle that'll work for the payment you want to be at. And so you can justify it that way. I mean, trust me, I have had to sell some of the strangest cars. There was a time when Nissan had the Nissan Stanza wagon. Okay, and I used to tell people, do me a favor, get up close to it and take a look at it. And they go, well, why? Because the further away you are, the uglier it's going to look. The closer you are, you can't take it all in. You make fun of it in order to sell it. So yeah, I mean, I have been hit over the head with some pretty crappy models to have to get rid of in my lifetime with the dealership.
Yeah, and I'm assuming a lot of these CDJR salesmen they're having a laugh about a lot of this inventory that's sitting on the lot. So I went to a Toyota dealership and talked to some salespeople and talked about the Tacomas and the Tundras that they have. They had them sitting everywhere. They didn't have any RAV4s, they didn't have any Corollas, they didn't have any Camrys, but they had a lot full of these trucks. And they it seemed like they were doing having the same approach where I said, why do you guys have so many Tundras? And Tacoma's like, man, we can't sell them. If you want one, buy one. Well, you know what? You don't even have to pay for it. Let me go get the keys. You just have it. And they I mean, it was obvious. And so I wonder, I mean, they knew who I was. So I'm sure they would joke around a little bit more with me than they would maybe an actual customer who's threatening to buy one. But I can't imagine what some of these salespeople have to do. They have to say to a lot of these consumers that are walking up on the lot now, because the customer walks up and they see 300 F-150s on one of these high volume Ford dealers. And they're like, well, I mean, you should be able to knock a lot off of this thing because you got 8,000 of them sitting here, right? And the salesperson's, I mean, all he can do is agree with you, right?
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't, then the salesperson's already lost credibility. So,
right.
Yeah, it is. It's not easy when there are times that you have bad vehicles that you have to sell. The SLX, which was a Isuzu Trooper that was rebadged as an Acura, that was another one. I mean, that was just a loss waiting to happen. You knew you were going to lose money when you sold it, because you could just go to the Isuzu dealer and buy the Trooper for several $1,000s less, and it was basically equipped identically. So there's just some vehicles are a struggle, and I'm telling you, eventually you can make that struggle fit into somebody's payment, which is what makes sense. And because people are payment buyers, it's just that simple. 80% of the population out there buys based on what their monthly payment is. That's all they care about. I don't care how much you're selling me the car for. Just get my payment no more than $750 a month with $2,000 down. You do that, I'm a happy camper. I'm driving out of here. And people don't say, oh, by the way, for 48 months or 60 months, they leave the term open. They just want the payment. And you would be amazed as to what you can do.
Yeah, and F&I is going to make sure they fill that payment up. You're going to get exactly what kind of payment you want,
or more, or better.
Did you ever work in F&I, or were you just in sales?
I did work in F&I for a short period of time. Yes.
What did you like more? Did you like being on the sales floor or being back in the office?
I liked trying to structure a deal, and I liked trying to play the chess game that was going on between the salesperson and the customer, trying to figure out where we were at, where the customer was at, what the next step would have to be, how to load the salesperson's lips as to what to say to move the customer where they wanted them. And if the salesperson couldn't do it, I loved going out and talking to the customers and trying to close the deal. I remember there was a time at the mini store, and we had a customer come in and we're arguing over a couple $100. He said, well, I can go. And this was, we were in Baltimore and outside of Baltimore. And he said, well, there's the dealer in Virginia I could go to. I said, well, where in Virginia? He told me. I said, that's a 3.5 hour drive from here. He goes, well, yeah. I go, well, what do you think you're going to save? Do you think you're going to save $200-300? He said, well, what if I do? Okay, so you're going to drive 3.5 hours down there. You're going to spend, I don't know, 3 hours arguing with them to try and save $300 over what I'm selling you the car for. And then you got to drive 3.5 hours back. You've got 10 hours invested. I'm just curious, how much do you think your time's worth? Because at 10 hours invested to save $300, is it really worth it to you? And his wife looked at him and she said, just buy the damn car. What are we doing? Because she didn't want to invest another 10 hours into it. I just loved going in and trying to close a deal. I really did. I mean, there was a guy that gave us a crazy offer, and the salesperson comes to me. He says, well, I don't know what to do with this guy. And so I said, well, I don't know. Let's go talk to him. I walked into the office. He's in there with his wife. And I just looked at him. I said, what the hell's wrong with you? What kind of offer is this? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, it's not a real one. He goes, well, what would be a real one? And he ended up buying it. I loved to go in and try and close because it was fun. For me, it was absolutely fun. And I enjoyed that, whether I was screaming at people jokingly, arguing, I mean, just trying to find the logic behind it. I had really great customers in Arizona, Palestinian family, last name was Arakat. Great people. I mean, I sold them so many cars. We became great friends over the years. But I remember the first time I was trying to sell them a car. And we were going over for hours arguing over $50 or $25. And he said to me, he says, I'm telling you, Ray, this is my last offer. If you don't take this, I'm leaving. And I stuck out my hand. And I said, it's really been a pleasure meeting you. He goes, and his son standing behind him like his eyes. He said, I want the car. You knew. And it was just, he didn't leave. We had fun.
I love the people that negotiate. We get them all the time where they'll ask for money off, and we're like, no, we really can't do that. Our prices are pretty much set, and they'll just stand there, and they won't go anywhere. Or they'll say like, okay, I want $500 off the car, and said, no, I can't do that. And they're like, oh well, okay, well I guess we're just not going to get a deal done. Yeah, but they'll stay.
Yes,
that's not how you negotiate, folks. If you actually want to get $500 off and you're not going to take the deal, then you need to leave after you say that.
Yes, you need to have the strength of your conviction and the ability and mobility to still get up and leave. Okay, because there's no leverage if you just stand there. Okay, well, they're going to cave in about 3 minutes. But that to me, that was always the fun part, was just trying to figure out how to close the deal. And I just thoroughly enjoyed that.
I really like negotiating. I don't care what it's about. Like I'll negotiate anything. Like I even my wife gets embarrassed about this, but even on our first house that we bought, like they had an RV sitting next to it, and I'm like, well, if you throw in that RV, then maybe I can get to the number. I would negotiate anything.
Well, it was like I told you, I got the proposal for the sliding doors this morning, and so I got back to the guy. I said, there's a couple things that just jumped into my mind at first glance. One, I can't get over how expensive this is. This is several $1,000s more than I ever thought I was going to have to spend. And two, I have a question about whether they should, there is weatherproof as I need them to be. Oh, and the third thing is how can you help mitigate the sticker shock? And which is actually lower the damn price. You can negotiate anything. Anything that has a price is negotiable most times. When I
I
was
try to
first,
tell my wife that all the time. We just bought some furniture and she went to go get us like, baby, just ask for 10% off and free delivery. I bet they'll give it to you. And
yeah,
she's like, I don't she's the type of person. I think there's like two people in the camps of negotiating. There's the people that absolutely love it and do it all
yeah,
the time. And there's the people that will spend whatever it costs not to have to deal
to
with
do that.
that process. My
Yes,
wife is one of those people.
yes,
And I she just walks away when I want to negotiate something. But you can negotiate this thing, and I'm not upset with her. I understand that where she's coming from, and she doesn't want to have to deal with that whole process. But I will say that after that, I went to a furniture store to get some chairs for our new studio, and I
uh-huh.
was able to negotiate those down a little bit. So you
Yeah.
can absolutely negotiate for furniture too.
When I was quasi serious about renting a place in Vegas for the winter, and I'm on realtor.com and I see this place and they were asking $3,000 a month, and then suddenly they reduced it to $2,750 a month. And so I emailed the agent and I didn't hear back. And then I called the agent and I said, you have a unique way of really handling these hot leads, because I really want to get a place. Okay. I said, here's what I'll do. Check with the landlord and see if he'll take $2,500 a month. He said, he's not going to take $2,500 a month. I said, he isn't if you don't ask. Ask him if he'll take $2,500 a month for the first year. And I would look at doing a 27-month lease. And we could talk about a rate increase for the last 15 months. He said, well, let me check with him, but he's not going to do it. I said, no problem. He called me back 10 minutes later. He said, you got a deal. Oh, look what happens when you ask. And I felt like, son of a gun, I should have offered him $2,400 a month. As it turned out, I didn't end up renting the place anyway. But you've heard me say this, and my son Zach has heard me say this, and the audience has heard you'll never get what you don't ask for. It might be a day where the owner just says to hell with it. Take what, sure. Yeah, give her 10% off on the furniture. Yeah. You'd be surprised what they could say.
Do you remember from any of your negotiations, like just some egregious off? Like, did you ever get $5,000 offer on like a $20,000 car or something? Was there anyone that comes to memory?
I remember when I was at Sun Pontiac in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm negotiating with a customer on a Firebird. And yeah, he made a ridiculous offer, and he looked at me and he said, well, you have to take it. I said, why is that? He said, well, because the customer's always right. I said, until today, until you walked in. Yeah, I mean, just because, like for instance, the guy that drove his BMW through a BMW dealership because he couldn't get approved for a new M series that was $130,000, a 20-year-old kid, okay, where they wouldn't let him test drive it until they could get an approval. And they couldn't get an approval because he didn't have a job. Okay, you know what? What do you need one of those for to buy a $130,000 car? So, yeah, I mean, you hear stupid stuff, and you just call stupid what stupid is. Things like that. Stupid. You have to take it because the customer's always right. No, I don't have to take it. Or somebody was complaining the other day that Carvana wouldn't approve them on a loan. I don't have to if you don't qualify.
All right, so all of you watching it here, I know most of you are not subscribed, so I need you to hit that subscribe button. Whatever we need to do to get you to hit that subscribe button, Ray will do it. So just hit it for us and let us know what he needs to do down in the comments to get you to subscribe.